I never thought that I would see a foreign flag flying in Burnham-on-Sea. The wind is just about fluttering the flag from Ukraine, and refugees has become a topical issue. When we had the war in Syria, we didn't have this outcry that we must start opening our doors to accommodate refugees. Now we've got around 150, 200,000 doors being opened to take refugees in from Ukraine. And the topic's been around the news that's elevated this question. Because they're nearer to us, they look like us, they speak a lot of English, many of them are Christian, they have a European outlook, that some refugees' lives become more valuable in a sense than others, because it was only the likes of Rosie, a teacher friend of mine, who was taking in Syrian refugees and educating them as her status as a teacher. And 40 years ago today, on the 2nd of April 1982, the Falkland Islands were invaded by Argentina. And yes, you can look at me and say, yes, he is old enough to remember the invasion. And when that happened, a lot of people never heard of the Falkland Islands. So all flags matter. And this one is about the flag of Argentina. And before the war, the invasion, most people in this country didn't know where the Falklands were. They couldn't put their fingers on the islands on a map. And unless you collected stamps or were into Brunel's Great Britain being beached at Sparrow Cove in the Falkland Islands, you wouldn't know where they were. And the Falkland Islands dispute is because it's a mistake over behaviour by our forefathers in colonial history. It's at the other side of the globe. It takes millions of pounds every year to maintain the colony. And Ken Hindle, who lives in Burnham-on-Sea, told us and me in 1982 it would be cheaper to give each family £1 million and move them to the Isle of Skye or the Hebrides. Next flag is Iraq. And I was horrified to see bombs being dropped on the civilian infrastructure in Baghdad in 2003, killing thousands of people in the pursuit of Saddam Hussein, one man. And I will never forget hearing on the news about an 11-year-old boy called Ali who had his arms blown off. And he had to go to Saudi Arabia for medical attention. And I'm always thinking about him, like the girl who had her leg blown off in Ukraine the other week. But because our side was committing this war, the optics are different than us following a war illegally and unnecessarily started by Russia. We go to the flag of Mauritius now. Now nobody in any numbers knows about this irritating story, laced with immorality. In the 1970s, Britain went over to Mauritius, to a group of islands called the Chagos Islands, which are a few hundred miles to the northeast of the main island of Mauritius. And Britain told the people to get off those islands, go and live elsewhere, perhaps on the main island, because Britain wanted those islands to build an airbase to strengthen the security of the world. And Britain leased out that airbase to the Americans, and the United Nations has recently told Britain to get out. It's unlawful for Britain to be creating refugees and occupying islands that don't belong to us thousands of miles away. And if someone said the other day that at least Putin is invading a country next door. Let's hoist the flag for Iran. In 1979, Britain received a few £1 million for tanks, which was ordered by the Shah's regime. And he was ousted by the Ayatollahs in the Islamic Revolution, and Britain wouldn't pay back the money. And Putin doesn't tell the truth to his population, and we're always being told about this, but to a lesser degree, so do the politicians in this country. No politician will speak for decades about Britain owing money to Iran for these tanks. And that's why about a handful of people were jailed unnecessarily and unjustifiably by the Iranians as a result, for example, a couple of Iranians came to Britain, I think it was 2013, to raise the issue of negotiating for the money that Britain owed them, and they were incarcerated for a few hours in Heathrow and sent home. So that led to the incarceration of these dual nationals. And there was no excuse for Britain not paying that money. Even if the Americans said no, Britain could have taken cash aboard a plane or shipped in gold bars from neighbouring Afghanistan. So we've had years of life robbed from these innocent people because of inert politicians who weren't coming clean with the nation. Let's hoist the flag for Yemen. Britain trains Saudi pilots who drop bombs with "Made in Britain" written on them that have killed children in Yemen, in taking sides in a war that once again is not our war. Once again, British bombs are killing people. Let's hoist the next flag for Chile. About 2 weeks ago, it was in the news that Chile, Easter Island, wants the statue back of the Moai that is in the British Museum in London. And it's coming on to this. I believe that the likes of Gibraltar should be handed back to the Spaniards, the Falkland Islands, because what belongs geographically should remain geographically in place. The Elgin marbles, they might have an agreement decades ago, but in the context of Black Lives Matter, correcting mistakes from the past, the Elgin marbles that Britain has and the Moai statue should be given back to Chile and Easter Island. So all flags matter. But when I was in occupied Western Sahara, Morocco has control of that area, a Sahrawi man said to me, "I wish there was no such thing as flags." However, do you agree? Do all flags matter?